She's a wonderful lady. I've been in the hold of ships with her. We haven't skydived yet, but I'd like to. We've had a lot of fun over the years. As I finish a book, I go get her and I say, well, now we gotta do the illustrations so that people will buy the book. And we've been doing that maybe for 20 years and enjoying it immensely. Today I'm going to talk about a bridge. It has a lot of meaning to me and I think to the people of Tacoma. I was in the library when Murray Morgan was asked, do you want a new cable stay bridge named after you? No, I want my bridge. And so, what bridge? He said, the 11th Street Bridge. I was the bridge tender there till they fired me. And many of you know Murray Morgan wrote many books, and one of them he wrote in the 11th Street Bridge, the very famous Skid Row book that defines Seattle. Well, the point I guess I'm trying to make is that Murray was in the library and the city building people were asking him about what he wanted, and he said, I want the old bridge. He said, I want to be a part of that old lunch bucket brigade that used to cross the bridge. Well, the bridge is almost 100 years old. 1913 it was constructed. There was a bridge before in 1893, wooden bridge that used to swing. But in 1913 they created this bridge to connect the peninsula or the tide flats with the city. And since that time it's been sort of an interesting courtship, if you want to call that, between the city and the tide flats. And I probably put 40 years in studying the different companies on the waterfront, the different city administrations, the back and forth of that. And I wrote one article on it. It was published in the News Tribune. I'm passing it around now. It's bridges have come into my mind many ways. I remember the first one was the Mostar Bridge in Yugoslavia. I got the opportunity to teach there for a year in 1972. And I went up to see this bridge, beautiful marble bridge. I don't know how many, Eddie, have you ever seen Mostar? Well, it's a marble bridge connecting the Muslim and the Catholic and the Orthodox villages surrounding it. It was built in 1465 and it's gone through all kinds of bloodbaths, but it existed. The point of that bridge, though, was that it was essential. Man wrote a book about it called The Bridge on the River Drina that won the Nobel Prize. It was a marvelous study of cultures and the bridge. And then I walked across the chain bridge in Budapest. I sort of like bridges. And did the Marco Polo Bridge in China, start of World War II. And I guess I just keep walking bridges. They sort of get to me. And when they decided they were going to take down the Murray Morgan Bridge, it really bothered me for historic reasons. And then I suddenly realized, as they were about to take it down, and they really were, that it couldn't happen. There was no way to the hospitals from the tide flats. And one accident happened, one chemical spill, and 40 people had to go up to the hospital. And they had to stop 7 times going up because there's no way up from the tide flats with the cable stay bridge. And that was one of the major deciding factors to keep the bridge. The other was that they'd done the Superfund site underneath it and put $40 million into cleaning it up, and if they'd have taken the bridge down, they'd have to do it all over again. So there were mitigating factors on why they kept the bridge. But that bridge is essential to Tacoma's history. It is right now, and it will be probably in the future. And its importance is that it binds the two together. That 7,500 people crossed that bridge in 1917. 29,000 crossed it in World War II, and 39,000 crossed the bridge or go to work on the tie flats now. Now there are other ways into the tie flats, but no direct ways. And furthermore, if you take a look at the example of Seattle, the gentrification of Seattle, you see a major change taking place in Seattle. A Ferris wheel on a dock is a perfect example. The bridge keeps the tie flat connected to the city. Much as the city and the port argue with each other, they're still connected. And it's important, of course, that they both exist. 39,000 jobs and 2,000 more coming next month make a big difference in the history of this community. And they have to stay together. Well, there's another important facet to that bridge. Nowhere has violence been more prominent than on that bridge. And people have died on that bridge, both management and labor. It has a violent history. We don't show the movies of the machine guns, the tear gas, all the mayhem that's taken place there. 1916, two longshoremen were shot at the post office, and two deputy marshals were shot on the bridge, dead. We have movies of those, but we don't show them very much. But the bridge then is also the site where a lot of unemployed people gathered in '33. Long history there. So it's a focal point in the history of our community. I don't know the work that we do to mitigate that. We just sort of forget it. We much more concentrate on the fall of the Narrows Bridge. These are parts of the history of our community. And does gentrification play a role in that in the future? That's one of the most important questions. Are we going the route of Seattle? Is Tacoma going to go another route? How much more land is free for shipping? These are important considerations. And I probably could write another article. But I'm open for any questions that you'd like to ask about the waterfront that I may be able to help you understand. Yes?
Did you walk the Galloping Gertie before it came down?
No, I walked the new one. I didn't get here until 1965 with the opening of Tacoma Community College. I began on an Indian reservation in Idaho teaching in 1949. And then Renton, and then here in Tacoma in '65. I did walk the new one. I enjoyed that immensely when it was in. I'm still walking bridges, sort of. Yes?
Underneath the current bridge is the old ramps and everything. Are those going to stay, or are they coming down, or what are they?
They're going to stay. They're not going to, the real problem with the bridge physically mostly has been the approaches. They've been undermined and been the main problem to repair. They're going to touch the bridge as much as possible. I have been working with them on the signage that's to go on the bridge. I got quotations from Murray Morgan for them on the bridge. And you'll be seeing those pretty soon. But the main one, the main quote is, I'd like to have walked with the Lunch Bucket Brigade. That's where the thousands of people who walk down off the hillside here, the slope, down across that bridge to work. And he was born here in 1912, and he used to watch them walking down that slope to across the bridge. He was a very dear friend. We shared a room at Tacoma Community College. And I think he taught me to write, how to write. So I owe him a lot. Yeah.
I was privileged to have a class from Mr. Morgan at TCC. But I knew he was a bridge tender. Did he have what we call formal education? Was he a college graduate, a trained teacher?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Is it a story?
Well, he started at the University of Washington, and he got to be the editor of the University Daily, the paper, and he ran an article on houses of prostitution close to the campus of the University of Washington, and the president of the University of Washington fired him as editor, and so he switched to University of Puget Sound, and since they didn't read Seattle papers, he was all right. That's what he said anyway. Is formally educated at UPS, and then master's degree from Columbia in journalism. I don't know how many know, he was on the Rhine River September 1st, 1939, and the Germans were invading Poland, and he was in a kayak with his bride, Rosa, and all hell broke loose, and he rushed to the nearest telegraph office and telegraphed Time magazine that he had a great story for them. He needed money, they were running out, and they published his eyewitness account of the German invasion of Poland, and he was off to the races. Yes?
When is the bridge going to be finished and open up?
Well, suppose it, I wouldn't count on any time. The original estimate was August of 2012, and they postponed it, I guess, to New Year's. And knowing the Department of Transportation, I'd just say I wouldn't guess if I were you, but let's all celebrate when it is. I shouldn't probably remark on this, but I do have the opening of the bridge on videotape, and if I'm not too big a bore, Sunday of the 1913 opening. I'm just trying to say, someday I'd like to come back and show it to you. It's really, really neat because the cameraman climbs up on top of the bridge, and it does this skyline of Tacoma in 1913, and it's just a marvelous. But I couldn't find it. That's normal for me. Other questions? Yes?
I know funding has been controversial and kind of almost like bitter. Could you comment on the funding and how the funding has ended up?
Well, originally they were going to give the city $42 million to take it down. And then when the cost of taking it down passed $50 million, they decided that repairing it would be cheaper, and I think the repair cost is around $70 million right now. I wouldn't count on it, whatever it's going to be. But the cost of it keeps going up and down like an escalator.
Is it state money then? All state of Washington money?
No, they've got some last of the Dix money. They've got their state appropriation of the $42 million that they originally put, and they've been scrounging for the rest of the money for every other kind of source. But the bridge is going to go back up, and I think it's extremely important for safety purposes that they have some way. But I can't believe that they built the cable stay bridge without any way up the hill, and they did. Yes.
Do you have any idea how it'll be lit? You know, now they have the floodlights on both sides.
Yeah. Thanks to Blaine Johnson. I don't know if you know Blaine, but he had this idea that we ought to put lights on the bridge. And he spent 2 years of his own time collecting money from people on the tide flats to put lights on the bridge, and they put them on, and they ran them a week, and suddenly discovered they'd have to pay for it, so they turned them off. And I noticed they're back on again now. They go back on and off with the economy of the city. I shouldn't be cynical, but I am about that. Question? I'm much better at answering questions than I am in talking. Yeah.
Will the History Museum do a special program when it opens?
Yeah, there is a special program coming with the opening of the bridge. Yes, if they ever, when they set the date, and I have talked to them about the history of the bridge. I did a study of it long before they decided to take it apart, and basically on the history of it, the people who walked across it. I interviewed maybe a couple hundred people over the bridge in the 40 years, staying with it. And the interviews are mostly of people who worked on the time flats. Yeah.
Will people still be able to get from the waterway out to the bridge?
Yeah. The main thing that they were doing with the bridge, they had to have one lane that was extremely strong. So it's a two-lane bridge. One lane is particularly strong for the fire trucks to go across. So that was one of the main parts of it. But the approaches were the hardest part that they had to go back and redo.
I think they took the staircase down.
Yes, they did.
Is that, Gail, I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's no longer a staircase that goes down to the...
That's right. And they're taking anything else out of there. It's a very strange thing, but there have been very few suicides on that bridge. I don't know, the Narrows Bridge seems to be more popular. In a sad way. 50-some on the Narrows Bridge, isn't it? Yeah. And I think it's fascinating that in the history of Tacoma, we had this Narrows Bridge, Galloping Gertie, and we had the 11th Street Bridge, and look who got the publicity. When you go to Washington, D.C., and you look at Tacoma, the exhibit, Smithsonian or any other place, it's the Narrows Bridge. It's never the Murray Morgan Bridge, which I think it's a working bridge. It's interesting, yes.
I heard a comment about the concrete and the counterweights. Was there something going on with the way the bridge deck and the counterweights work?
Yeah, there were only a couple of those bridges built like that because of the counterweights and the fear generated by the public at the size of them. And so they got away from that kind of bridge. And today, they're always worried about stress on concrete. But as far as I know, they're in excellent shape. The sea salt didn't bother them that much. Question? Yes?
I was going to say, the reason that we hear so much about the Narrows Bridge and not the Murray Morgan is still standing. The Narrows, the original Gertie's isn't.
Yeah, and it's a classic example, another miscellaneous tidbit. I received phone calls from national televisions, and quite often, and they're looking for uncopyrighted film footage of the fall of the Narrows Bridge. There were 8 cameramen on that bridge on November 1940 that photographed it going down, and 7 of those were never copyrighted, and they're in Washington, D.C. And I made a film of all of those. They were studying why it went down, and so the copyrighted one is the one that almost everybody sees in color. But the 7 others are black and white, they're taken from underneath. And there is one film of that going down the Gertie that has sound. And it's sort of a terrifying sound. And I showed it a couple of times, and people got so nervous and overwrought about it that I just filed it away. I don't know how many were there. And there in the Tacoma Historical Society, when you ask that question, everybody's hand goes up. and they'll all tell you the story of it, and it's all different. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
When you mentioned that, I remember it was the Sunday before the bridge went down. My dad took the family and we went over, and as we were going over the bridge, my dad remarked, he said, "That's funny that car there is, I've seen it go down and it came back up." Tell you the truth, we were happy when we turned around and the other side came back. Weird feeling.
There's a very interesting story. The last one off the bridge. His name was Winfield Brown. I don't know if any of you know Winfield. He had played hooky from school, and one of them just walked across the bridge for a dime, and he was coming back when the bridge was going down. And there was an engineer, a civil engineer, and somebody else on the bridge, and they got off, and he crawled off. Winfield Brown did at the end, and it was in Japan that they were running some of this old film footage, and they spotted him crawling alongside the bridge to get off, and they blew that film up, and it was a sensation in Japan. But Winfield Brown, anyway, I got a copy of the film. I'm also quite a film collector of Tacoma history. Try anyway. And I went to see Winfield Brown, and he painted me a picture of the bridge going down with him on it. He was a painter. Yeah.